Hello there, Tien here. You're listening to the Real Talk with Tien podcast, and this is episode number 8, How to Deal with Copycats. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. If you're a returning listener, come on in. We're about to talk. On today's episode, we're getting into the ugly mess of copycats. Now, let's be clear. I'm not a lawyer. I don't even play one on TV. So this is not legal advice. But rather what I'm doing here is sharing with you some practical real life situations and some usable tactics that you might be able to use for dealing with a similar situation. Now, the question is, what to do when someone copies your design? Or let's just flip that on its head and ask, what if you're accused of copying someone else's design, meaning your design is similar to someone else's already published design? What do you do? Now, we won't be talking about if it's okay for a big company to copy indie designers' work and then offer them for free on their website. That, I think, is a whole different conversation with a wide range of opinions that we're just not going to get into today. What we are focusing on today in this conversation is the copying from two designers' perspective of each other to try to get a balanced viewpoint. And for these two designers of our case study, we're looking at first the one who feels her work was copied and accusing someone else, and second, that designer who is being accused. Maybe you've been in one of either of these situations before. Maybe you're in one of these situations right now, or maybe you've been putting off designing or putting out your latest design because you don't want to be accused of copying. I mean, this is a really tough spot to be in because of how fast things move on social media. It makes us afraid. You know what I mean? It's like we don't put things out there that we know in our hearts is original and might be similar because we don't want the hype of that popular designer to attack us. So that's why I'm just asking you to use your hearts and not just your heads and mind. Be authentic. Put out there work that is true and really representative of you. That is your design and is your work. Cool? So let's get into some case studies from some recent conversation I've been having with students and coaching clients. We'll start with the designer who feels like her work was copied. I recently had a student for one of my courses hit me up to ask a question about the materials in the course. She was working on the grading with Microsoft Excel course, and she was having trouble with some formulas. So we jumped on Zoom so I can see what she was dealing with, look at her formulas and things like that. After we got done with the call, she asked if she could ask me a non-Excel question. You know me. I love a good question. As long as it's not personal or anything like that, I'm good. So she was asking about her new pattern. And her question was, what to do if her design is similar to someone else's? She's about to hit publish on a design and went on Ravelry to see if there was something similar, and unfortunately there was. So her question is, should she scrap the design and not publish it, or go ahead and publish the pattern anyway? Now, this is not an easy question, and it's not a one-size-fits-all solution because there are nuances to each circumstance, right? But if I was in a room full of designers or on a podcast talking to a bunch of designers, like I am now, without knowing your specific situation, I would recommend what I told the student. So instead of a straight yes or no, I ask a series of questions that I'll share with you as we go through the episode. So here's what I said. First, look inside your own heart. Only you truly know if that design is original. And here are some other questions you might want to ask yourself. Did you come up with the sock pattern yourself, or is it a variation of something you've seen? Can you show, if asked, for the source of the stitch pattern? like a Stitch dictionary or something like that, and your inspiration for the sock. Also, think about how would you feel if, as that designer who already has a sock pattern, using this very same stitch pattern is in the exact same way, seeing someone else publishing this. What is your gut telling you? Now, I talk about your gut a lot, and really to trust it, because I think we do things too fast without thought of consequence too often, right? Think about what your gut is telling you. Dig down. Take a second, sit on it. If you really look inside your heart, could you defend yourself if accused? What if that designer who already has a similar pattern out, she has a fan base, and that hive is thirsty for blood and they attack you? Could you stand up in your own truth and offer up solid defense against what they're accusing you of? And hear this. I'm not saying to go have a fight on social media, because just don't do that. But if this happened and you're being called out publicly, would you be able to defend your design? So can you? Now for the practical, less woo-woo, guts and heart kind of thing. If you're the designer, feeling copied and accusing another person, first take a step back, take a breath. It's not that serious. And look at the situation from a big picture perspective. If you're a sock designer that uses popular Stitch dictionaries, consider that the other designer is also influenced by the same stitch pattern. And you're both sock designers, you're serving the same audience, and you have a similar inspiration. So it is possible to independently come up with the same pattern. It happens all the time. So don't jump to conclusion without having all the facts. Put yourself in the other person's shoes and look at the situation from their standpoint as well. Now, if you are the one being accused, before you respond, think about it from the other designer's perspective as well, and look for ways to avoid escalating the situation at all costs. I don't believe in fighting publicly. So even if they're accusing you on social, I would recommend just sending a nice email, not a DM or a message or something like that, but a real human email directly to the other person to share your inspiration. Share with them where you found the pattern and what inspired you for that design. So what might that actually look like? You might start out by saying something like, "Hello, designer," insert their name, and of course, spell it correctly. We don't want to be underhanded and passive aggressive and doing silly things like that. Be respectful, okay? So it's "Hello, designer," whatever their name is. I saw your post on Facebook, Instagram, whatever, that you believe my current sock design, X, is similar to your sock design, Y. I want to take a minute to send a quick note, because as a designer myself, I can't imagine how you feel about your work being copied. I want to let you know that I did not copy your design. While I am familiar with your body of work, side note, state that only if it's true. If you're not familiar with them, leave that out. Okay? So, while I'm familiar with your body of work and as a fan of you as a designer, I would not do that to you or any other designer. The design idea was inspired by B so-and-so stitch pattern from Stitch Dictionary G. The idea came about because I was looking for a sock to commemorate a recent trip to insert place, Hawaii, whatever. The picture of this twisted trunk on this old tree was an inspiration. Maybe you have the Stitch Dictionary in your library as well and was similarly inspired. Since seeing your note in regards to my design, I've purchased a copy of your design, and after reading through your pattern, which the samples look very similar, the instructions are very different. If you would like to confirm this, I can send you a copy of my pattern for comparison. Now, you see how I de-escalated that whole situation? I went through, got the facts, I presented it in a concrete, step by step, with clear explanation. So I hope that helped to clarify the situation a bit. If you have any question, let me know. I'd love to chat about that. So then after you've done all that, you add your salutation, sincerely, blah, blah, blah. Done. Okay? Simple and straightforward, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be anything fancy or anything like that, right? So where can she find fault in that? You've proven your point. Situation is over. Maybe give it a day or two for her to respond. If she doesn't, do what you think is the best. Maybe you want to go onto that post that she accused you and just lay out lay out exactly what you've said in that email to her with facts and not emotions. Okay? So you want to tell them, this is your inspiration, you bought the pattern, it's nothing like the end. So, can we see how we sort of de-escalated a possible volatile situation? First, we got our ducks in a row to validate or invalidate the claim. Second, we're kind and understanding without being accusatory in the email. And third, we treat the other designer with grace and consideration, similar to how we would want to be treated if we were in that situation. And finally, above all else, we were level-headed in the email. Even if we weren't feeling it that way in the moment, we were kind and professional. And that goes a long way. Now, if you're the designer on the other end who think your design was copied, do some groundwork before going off accusing someone else, because you're defaming someone else's character without evidence. And that is just not nice. You don't want someone else doing it to you, right? So before you go on social media, blasting someone else, buy their pattern, compare the instruction, and make sure you are 100% accurate. Okay, so even if the instructions are similar, look at the publication date. Maybe they were published around the same time frame and could not possibly have been a copy, right? So let's play devil's advocate for a second. Maybe the pattern was actually copied. Then what? All right? Don't blast folks on social media. We're still going to harp on that because it's just makes you look bad. Sure, you're going to get folks writing hard for you in the comments, but really, is that the image you really want to put out there? Is that what you want your brand to stand for? Similarly, before going public, go private by sending that other designer an email. Address your concern about your design being similar, all while being kind and professional. But what to do if she doesn't respond? She really has no responsibility to you, right? You've addressed it. I would just recommend to just move on. That designer copying you will not break you or your design business. The truth is, designers, and right here I have designers in quotation, designers who are copying is not sustainable because copycats are always miles behind you and always trying to keep up and will always fail to do so because they're always trying to catch up with you. And eventually others will see that and call them out where you don't have to get down in a muck with them. Essentially what I'm saying is stay above the fray, mind your own business, keep putting out great work, and the scrubs will fall away and the cream will rise to the top. Yeah, I know I'm mixing up metaphors, but you know what I mean. You can't control what others do, but you can control how you react and focus on what you're doing. So keep being innovative and being ahead of the game because copycats are not a threat. So stay focused on what you're doing. Now, regardless of which side of the situation you're on, don't overreact. Take a breath and be professional. Reach out personally and don't put folks on blast on social media because you might not have all the facts. I mean, if you talk to the other person and you're totally in the right, they agree but refuse to do anything about it, then maybe you can take that next step, whatever it is. But be true to you. Trust in your gut and treat others the way you would want to be treated. Now, don't not put out your design idea because you're afraid that others might copy your work. Don't let that fear completely paralyze you from living your life so that you don't share your work. Put your head down, do the work, and keep being original. Keep being authentically you. Now, if you're ready to start designing and have questions about how to start, check out my book, Unlock Your Inner Designer, How to Start Designing. You can grab a copy at my website, tianconneton.com/book, and start your design journey today. Now, I hope this episode gave you some insight on what to do if you're facing copycats or you're being accused. Just keep doing what you're doing. Put your head down and be authentic. I hope you were able to take away something from this episode. If anything I talked about today resonated with you, reach out. Reach out on Instagram and leave a comment in the post for this episode. Let's have some real conversation about copycats and what you're dealing with. I'd love to talk to you more. Did you enjoy this episode? Please leave a rating, a review, and hit subscribe to share with 5 of your crafty friends that you think might like to hear this. I can't wait to talk to you again soon. Bye for now.